on through. Thank you, Sebastian, for dropping on in there. Hey, I'm gonna start streaming now, and
Okay.
then we'll just click into it.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got you full screen. We've got me full screen. We've got Sebastian dropping in. We're at 7:30. This is Office 365 Message Center the week. It was live from SharePoint Conference. Let's play that intro. Hey! This is Daryl as a service in New Zealand, but we've got on the other side of the world.
Daniel, this is me, Daniel
Hey,
Glenn. I
hey!
am.
Where's
What? What?
a little more excitement?
Oh, yay! I'm a little. I'm in Vegas. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we're at the SharePoint Conference North America. So I had all my excitement this morning. We had the big keynote for the conference, and so maybe my lack of excitement there was because of that. So I've used some of my energy, and I've already hit up a session. So good times. Having a great time here.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I know there's a ton of stuff that was announced in the keynote,
Right.
and I know what I tried to do was capture a number of these little clips. So we're going to do it in true polished
Yeah.
style of regarding 365 and double click the video clips that we've created.
Yeah.
Um,
It's awesome.
but yeah, let's dive straight in and look at a couple of things from a message center because I know there's a real crucial one in there, which is
Yeah.
actually it's a major update. It's considered a major update. So let's take a look at that
Yep.
and blow that up a little bit. So you're seeing the message center there, mate?
Yep. Sure am. Yep.
Alrighty.
Yeah, so this is the soapbox time that we have allotted for this week's show. For those of you that have joined us regularly, sometimes we have announcements that may cause some my stomach to unsettle. So I get on a soapbox to talk about it, and this is one. So this announcement is talking about how Microsoft is changing the versioning control in SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. So what we've had in the past is every document library has a setting to say, I want to keep versions, and you can select whether you want major versions or minor versions, and you can actually tell how many versions you want to keep. And sometime last year, Microsoft actually turned it on to where all new document libraries that were created had major versioning turned on, and I think it was set at something like 500 or something. I mean, it was a large number of versions. But then you've been able to turn that off and say, I don't want to keep versions. Okay. There's some reasons why you might want to do that, such as compliance. You think about every version you have of a document checked in, that is discoverable for litigation or other types of scenarios. So that you might want to turn versioning off, just to say, okay, I only want one version and I want it to be the one that we have, and the only one we have. This announcement is saying that Microsoft is not only going to turn on versioning for every document library, if you have it set to not keep versions, they're going to turn it on for you. And they're going to set it to 100 versions, major versions. If you have it set to higher, then they're not going to change that number. If you have it set to lower, then they're automatically going to move it up to 100. Not only that, wait, there's more. They're going to turn off the capability for you to turn off versioning. So every document library in SharePoint Online, every document in your OneDrive for Business is going to have versioning turned on, and it's going to be set to at least 100 versions or more. And you're not only not going to be able to turn it off, you're not going to be able to set it lower than 100. So I personally feel like this is a very heavy-handed change in handling documents. I think there are use cases for this, and I think it's a great thing. I just don't like Microsoft changing what you've already set and then not allowing you to turn off versioning. So I'm okay turning on versioning and having it going and being on all the time and on by default. But if I have a use case and I have a business scenario where I want to turn that off, I want to be able to. So that's this update. I think the major thing here is, what do you need to do to prepare? Is a lie. Listed on there, it says you don't need to do anything, but maybe consider updating your user training. Yeah, but there's also other compliance and legal reasons, things that you need to look into. This is not just something small. This is something big. It is a major change. I like that in Office 365. But one thing that I noticed, and I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but one thing I did notice about this is the announcement wasn't made on the SharePoint blog. It was made as a post in the SharePoint community on Tech Communities. So I didn't like that handling of it, but please be aware of this change. It is a big deal, and you need to treat it as such.
There was a great summary, and I know it was definitely a hot topic discussed on the thread of where the post was made in the tech community. A lot of strong feelings about that, and space consumption, retention of documents. There's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be worked through. So, if you're in the community, you want to sort of share your opinion, then do it there, because we have seen decisions like this being reversed to or at least adapted to try and fit the customer's needs, because we are the customer. Look, the other announcement that we want to take a quick look at is the new start pages. Before we get into talking about cool stuff around the SharePoint conference and the keynote.
Yeah.
Now this next change is around the new start page experience within Office. Right, so when you go into Office and you go into open and share dialog boxes, or you just open up that new document experience, then you're going to see a very different looking page. It's still going to have the templates, but it's more going to be more of a focus on what you've currently been working on. Right. And there are going to be a few buttons that are shifted around. I'm sorry that I didn't bring up the screenshot. I know I asked it of the Office Insiders to see if I could get a better look at it. But if you go through to additional information, you are going to see the view of the new backstage. So I will try and...
I'm actually an Office Insider, and I've been using that new, backstage look that you see there. Sorry, I didn't see your request for that, Daryl. I would have sent you a screenshot of mine. But it is, it's nice. It is different. So when I first saw it, I went, "Whoa, this is odd." A little bit. It's just a different change and a different look. So. Make sure you're looking when you do get it, that you are paying attention to what you're seeing. It's not the same kind of look of all your listing of files and stuff. It's trying to be a little more intelligent. So
definitely, yeah. We'll share a link out to the larger screenshot of that, but it's essentially a change. It is something you'll need to let people know about. It's reasonably familiar, more of a focus on the documents that you've currently been working on rather than a huge page of templates. All good. Hey, let's get cracking into our list. And I was up at 4 a.m. New Zealand time.
Yes, you were.
I was capturing in OBS recording of the whole keynote, and as you can see, making a ton of timestamps to go back on and take some clippings, so we can kind of work through this. I won't leave this up on screen the whole time, but what we will do is I'll try and click into some of these clippings, and Dan and I will pass comment on some of these things. Dan, look, just as a situational awareness thing, or at least giving us something of the atmosphere, what's it like at SharePoint Conference before, and then potentially what sort of chatter did you hear as you're coming out of that keynote?
So beforehand, the atmosphere is excitement. It's a what are we going to hear, because we know these keynotes are made. They are positioned to make a lot of announcements, and May is a big deal for SharePoint folk. This is our third year having a virtual summit, is what it's called. Basically, they queue up items to be announced in May, as well as in September for Microsoft Ignite conference. And so we knew that there was going to be stuff coming. We've been seeing a little bit of hints for it, but so the excitement coming out was, I think, for how are we going to apply this? One of the big things that, I'm sure we'll talk about is the virtual reality bit of with libraries. How can we use this? And so I think that was kind of the atmosphere coming out of the keynote was it's information overload. Okay, we're going to have to go back and review some of this, but how can I start applying this to my organization?
I know that there is a number of improvements that have been modernizing or continuing that modernization journey. So one of the things that you and I will look at is some of these clips is, the document library and how that's more fully functional. We can see some of the key things around sharing and search, which we can click into. And definitely some good news around tools for administrators and the SharePoint 2019 on-prem.
That's right.
Yeah. So I know there's a timeline that I've got here that I can just buzz through just as we kind of talk about some of these things. There were 4 pillars as we usually, fill in there. So there was sharing and working together. There was inform and engage. We talked about, Jeff talked about transforming business processes and there's 5. Extend and develop and protect and manage. Right. Yep. Whoops. Couldn't count. Now, some of the key stuff that we look at from an end user point of view is that how do we work together and how do we communicate and collaborate, and SharePoint definitely covers that collaboration space. So during the demo with Omar and Aaron, they'd spend a bit of time looking at the co-authoring experience, and one thing that really stood out to me was we've seen this before, but there was something else different during that demo. Do you remember what it was?
You're talking about the as far as mentioning people?
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes. That is amazing to be able to mention people, and then they get an email saying, oh, you've got an update, but then mentioning people and then sharing. That is huge, because before, and we've had to do this in SharePoint and OneDrive, where you're wanting to give someone access to or you're wanting to collaborate with someone on a document. You first have to go share it with them, and then you have to go back to the document and make those comments or whatever. So that is huge. It is I think an improvement of that flow.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is we'll try and bring up this post. So, because Dan's in quite a noisy environment, we're going to get him to mute, and then what I'll do is just flick over here so we can have a look at the. Here we go. That'll do it. That's us commenting as well. Here we go. We'll play this.
I'm going to go ahead and select the qualification section here and use a new feature in Word that makes it easy to bring people into the document in real time. I'm going to go ahead and hit comment. And you'll notice as soon as I type the @ symbol, a list of people shows up. This is an intelligent list of people that leverages information about who I collaborate with to make it a lot easier to bring those people into the document. I'll go ahead and select Aaron here, type some text, and now Aaron is going to get a notification and shortly will join me in the document. But I also know I have another colleague of mine, Naomi, who's excellent at writing job descriptions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her into the document too. Now what's interesting here is that Naomi doesn't have access to this document. When I go ahead and click send, I'm actually going to be prompted to share with her at the same time. And this is great. It saves me time. Not only will she get a notification, but she'll also be shared and invited into this document.
All right, Dan, come off mute there. Now, one thing that really impressed me about that mention was it wasn't just about looping people into a conversation, but it was also about trying to share, trigger that sharing experience that you would normally have when you go to attach a document to an email. It's a natural thing as part of that conversation.
It is, and it's more than, when you're sharing a document, to be able to highlight, I use comments all the time on documents when I'm collaborating with others, and so to be able to highlight and say, here's the part that I'm talking about, right, that I want to share with you, that wrapped into the sharing ease of doing this is just amazing. It was exciting to see that revealed and see what people's reactions were to it. So it's pretty good.
Definitely. Now let's see what else we had here. We're also looking at now this clip. If you mute again, sorry, buddy.
As I scroll down, you'll see the parts used in SharePoint.
This is looking mostly at the refresh of the SharePoint Modern document library, just really to get across there that it is definitely fully functional. Let's roll that.
As I scroll down, you'll see the Document Library web part. We're happy to announce that we're bringing all the capabilities of document libraries to the web part, which is one of the most popular web parts used in SharePoint. You can see here that we're going to support features such as drag and drop, filtering, sorting, grouping, and one of my favorite features, which is the new column formatter.
All right, so that was the web part, and then following on from that was
the show one of my favorite features. So we're going to head on over to the document library, and I want you to pay close attention to the contents of this document library. You can already see here that we've customized this with some pretty cool looking information such as effort and status. And I'm going to be waiting for Aaron over there to do some uploading. Oh, did you see that? Just like magic, that content appeared right there in the document library. In addition to supporting things like uploads and deletes in real time, you can also see Aaron is changing some of the columns metadata. And so that when we're working together in real time on this team site, which a lot of you do, you're going to get to experience all that real-time changes to both document libraries and lists, making the experience a lot more magical.
All right, Dan, so to come off mute there, like one of the key things was it was modernizing the document library, but not only that, what's this thing about real-time updates?
Yeah, and this is a big deal for people who've been in content and they want to see the items being updated. You've always had to hit refresh, F5 or hitting the refresh on your browser. This is a big deal with being able to see content being added to the document library. So if someone uploads a document while you're looking at the document library, you're going to see that document update. If someone's editing metadata in the document library, then you're going to see those edits. So I think that's a big deal. We're trying to get us away from having to do, that refresh or this is dynamic content, and this is one way that they're allowing us to engage with that dynamic content. So I really like this, and that along with bringing this new document library web part into SharePoint Online, being able to, we'll get that same experience with being able to seeing that dynamic content updating in the document library. So.
Microsoft Teams is our hub for teamwork.
All right, so the other catch there too that we were looking at was not only is it just about document libraries and things being changed there, but our favorite new tool or favorite new hub for teamwork has also received the document library treatment. So let's have a quick look at that.
Is our hub for teamwork, and we want to bring all the value of SharePoint, such as lists, document library, and pages, directly into the Teams application. So as I switch over to Teams, you'll see here the brand new Files tab, which includes all those same capabilities of document libraries that you just saw earlier. All the features such as column formatting, metadata, drag and drop, including support for over 300 different file previews that we support in OneDrive and SharePoint. So you can work inside of Teams and view all those files and collaborate in real time without ever having to leave the Teams application. We think that's going to really enhance the way people work together.
Right, yeah, so looking at that, I mean, you see that it was almost identical in terms of the look of the document library. You can filter and sort columns, and you can do various things like that. You can also see that conditional formatting. Of course, if you want to go through and change any of that, you need to go into the full SharePoint experience. But it's great to see that document library is a lot fuller and richer as a files tab within Teams. However, do you think that this simplified experience we've had up until now has been really good for those who are they're a bit overwhelmed by SharePoint? How do you think they'll react to seeing a fuller, more SharePoint kind of document library in the Files tab?
Yeah, I think, this is obviously one of those deals where use it the way your team needs to use it, right? So if you're in that, you have a team that's dynamic that, knows SharePoint and knows or is more mature in the usage of it, I guess I should say, then use this new functionality in Teams and bring that functionality with formatting and all that. I think, as you said, the simpler files view, we still have access to be able to do something like that with We can actually do a web view or whatever. But we also need to bring our users along and help them in that maturity. So we don't have to do these formatting. We don't have to do all those kind of things. But we are getting the functionality of a document library that I think for me is a good thing, because when I first saw the files, it's like, oh, this is simplified files listing in Teams. Okay, that's great. But then, oh, wait, this is SharePoint files. So why don't I have access to all of those other things? So I'm on the leaning toward the, if your people are not used to it, that's fine. But this is another one of those, we're going to have to train our people up.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think that all the benefits of being able to add those custom columns and the metadata and having all that beautiful SharePointiness that you usually get is now going to be exposed in Teams, and it's not just a folder and file structure. So that's cool. Hey, we've got to keep clicking on, I guess. So I want to get into one of the things that really got me super excited. I'm allowed to use that word because I actually mean it. My heart is pounding, and as I saw it, I was like, oh.
Windows. I thought of you when this was happening. So
yeah.
I knew you would.
Windows mixed reality in SharePoint. What? Okay,
right,
and so I know. I will. Just to say that, like, Noah Sparks and Joel Olson were talking about this a little whiles back. Hopefully, they get some kind of credit for pushing them in this direction. WMV. Here we go. And I'll push play. Come on, man. Let's try that again. I promise this is not filmed in 360, so it shouldn't be crashing.
So, let's create a product catalog space and showcase the 2018 lineup of products for Contoso outdoor gear. What you're seeing here is a 3D editing canvas built using WebVR and Babylon.js inside our own SharePoint site. Now, when you start building a PowerPoint presentation, what do you do?
I'm going to keep clicking on through to keep showing some of the key features.
The plus here brings up a familiar toolbox with a set of web parts. How many of you here have created a SharePoint page? So anyone who has ever authored a SharePoint page will understand what to do here right away, because we are leveraging the same user experience. The only difference here is that these web parts are MR capable and understand how to render in a 3D space. They're also extensible, just like their 2D. Now I can manipulate these objects, can make them bigger, or even make them fly.
All right, keeping on going. There's just a few more clips in here.
Everybody still there?
Adam's currently in the welcome space that we built just a few minutes ago.
All right, so here I am. I'm going to sort of just turn around a little bit so you can get the sense of this balance between information density and the expansiveness of scenery that is so important in mixed reality. All right, I'll walk towards the West Coast here to really zoom in on this. Somebody tell me if I'm about to hit a giant hashtag. Which you can sort of see, you can just get a sense of sort of drilling in a particular piece of data.
Finally,
2 more clips.
The 360 video we added a few minutes ago.
Right. Go.
Now, this was one of the customer submissions that we received. They wanted to share how amazing their camping experience was because of all the products they purchased from Contoso Outdoor.
All right, Dan, come off mute. There was one other one there that was kind of at the tail of this one here, but it was like the people. There you go, the people experience.
That's how the people. So I will say I was a little skeptical. I knew about this. Okay, we're going to be doing virtual. But when it really brought it together, I'm not a products. I don't. My company doesn't do products, and so the whole kind of having a products gallery and seeing those, I think would be great for other companies. Not for me, but I think for other companies to get an immersive kind of experience. I think, and that's not going to be the be all end all kind of thing, right? It's going to be built upon and I'll have a better experience. But I will say when that video came out and showed that 360 video and how you could experience that, but in your browser, I mean, I don't have to have a headset, right? I can experience that in the browser in SharePoint. You know, we can do this not in SharePoint, but doing it in SharePoint, I think is a really cool thing. So, but I knew you were excited. When they started talking about this, I'm like, oh, Daryl's going to love this because you already have video ready to go for this. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an amazing experience.
Look, this is the thing that whenever I watched, Joel and Noah doing their little demonstrations of the possibilities of Windows mixed reality and VR, I thought, this is great. It could become practical, but what does that look like? And what we saw today was VR, or rather Windows mixed reality, becoming a practical tool. I know that you're a little skeptical and saying, well, how applicable is this? What can we do with this? But I instantly...
in the business sense.
Yeah.
Because this is business, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Skeptical. I don't want to, I don't want to phrase it as I'm skeptical. It's just, I think it has its place. It's just I don't have a lot of opportunity to experience that.
Right.
In the roles that I've had right now, in the recent past.
So let me put this in context. I'm doing a project right now with a large New Zealand media company who will be nameless, and we are looking to do 360 and VR in there to try and help bolster the adoption and change management experience. How do you bring that context of onboarding or training or using things and now look, we've got SharePoint that's going to be able to expose that and bring that content to them, to make it a more immersive experience. You don't have to have the WMR goggles or anything like that. Right. You can use browser, but there's always going to be a better experience that way. So tons more. I'm going to do a little drill down into that later on when I got some time. There were a couple of other things around, announcements around, we've got... Pages. Okay, this was quite a key one here around metadata and pages, so we'll roll that.
Now here's the coolest thing of all. This page is appropriate for our guides in Europe. We want to make sure that page reaches them. And we're pleased to announce that today, or coming soon to SharePoint, you're going to be able to easily tag pages with metadata. So I can expose the metadata for this page, choose what type of activity this is. This is a city program. I can choose the region that it's appropriate for, the role of the employee that should see this particular page. We'll say it's for guides. And this metadata is, of course, completely customizable. These are simply the columns added to this pages library on this site. And I can then use that metadata to organize my site and to filter and target pages. I've even chosen on this page to expose some of the metadata in the new page properties web part.
So why is this a big deal, Dan?
Well, this coupled with the approvals that was, when we don't have time to get to it today, but with the page approvals are two components that frankly, we've been had for a very long time that were taken away in more recent versions, 2013 SharePoint, but been having metadata on files, on pages. But then this even takes it even a step further in bringing it and being able to display it on the page, so that I can have a content owner, I can have, showing users how, what, in this case, in that example, what region or whatever this applies to. And then when that rolls up, those pages, those items roll up, we can do filtering based upon audiences and who it applies to. So I think this is a great step in bringing the making the intranet and making your collaboration area your own, making it yours and apply to you rather than just the whole organization and you trying to find your place. So I think it's a fantastic development.
Yeah, now we can pass just a couple more comments rather than rolling a clip that SharePoint 2019 is going to have some of the key benefits that we've seen in SharePoint Online for a little bit. So on demand or files on demand. There was, what else was there, mate? Modernizing of pages.
Those are kind of the two big ones that I caught. Modernizing pages, bringing that modern experience to SharePoint on-prem. And then that files on demand, being able to not sync all of your files using the OneDrive client for SharePoint on-prem, but also, so you can free up have access to the content if you need it, but then not have to download all those files from the document library onto your machine when you're syncing. So there's a lot more. You know, this conference is going on we've got a half day more today, and we've got 2 other days. There's going to be a lot more announcements being made, a lot more to keep up with, and those items will be added to the Message Center as they begin rolling out in the cloud. So definitely keep track and stay abreast of those Message Center updates, and of course watch the show every week, and we'll cover all of those announcements.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we've got the live audience there too, and in the chat room, Steve and Phil and a couple of others, and some of the regulars that are actually there in person. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.
Dan's probably going to try and bring some other clips to you and share them via our channel. So go to Regarding 365 on YouTube and tune into other various things that they'll be doing at SharePoint Conference with Owen and Dan. And sadly, Alistair couldn't make it, had some passport problems, but we do what we can to bring it all together. Thanks everyone. Catch you again next week. Bye for now.